Chapter 10. No Sex Without Commitment. How Men Fall in Love and Women Fall into Bondage. Women who are interested in marriage just signal men before sex that they are moving towards marriage, or too often the women will be hurt and time will be wasted. This is the core of my sex training: how to have committed sex. Not long after you meet, maybe even on the first date, a man will invite you to play the masculine game of let's consummate the relationship during the perfect phase when we don't know the downsides of our personalities, but the chemistry is really rolling. Don't be insulted by an honest request for casual sex. It means his body likes your body and he wants to do what's natural for bodies to do. Men want to play after work. One of the things that they want to play at is sex. So be grateful to whoever asks you for sex as long as he does it courteously, and say thank you when you say no. If you agree to casual sex, what you are really saying is, I don't know you, but who cares? Let's do it because our bodies want it, and hopefully pretty soon we'll fall in love and get married, I guess. Unfortunately, things don't work that way. Monogamy, it appears, is a female situation, while masculine men may be comfortable with multiple sex partners. So, how do you know when to have sex with a new man? That's easy, after he gives you a commitment. A man knows before he meets a woman if he is available for commitment, but often what it takes is a woman requiring him to make that commitment. This means nothing less than a woman saying, I'm not going to have sex with you until you promise me continuity, exclusivity, and longevity, or in other words, commitment. This is a promise that he must make soberly at least a day in advance of consummating, and preferably in the cold light of day when you are talking and not engaging in sexual foreplay. If he will promise that he is interested in a long term, sexually exclusive, continuous relationship leading to a mutual goal that you both appreciate, which may or may not include a legal marriage, then he is on the way to love. Continuity. A man must promise that once you have sex with him, you and he will continue to have sex on a regular basis, and that this just isn't a brief thing. Longevity. Is he looking for a one night stand or possible lifetime commitment? Find out what his long term plans are for relating to you, a woman. If you want a long term relationship, then he must be available for and be willing to have one with the same goals as yours. If you want marriage and children, he doesn't have to propose marriage, but rather, I'm available for marriage and children. And if things work out between us, I'm willing. Monogamy. Since masculine men are naturally very polygamous, you must find out with whom else he is having a sexual relationship. Does he want to continue having sex with his ex wife or old girlfriend, or with any new ladies he happens to meet? Or are you the only one? This promise is the most decisive of the three aspects of commitment, and the most difficult to extract. Masculine men do not easily give up sexual freedom, so this agreement is a sign that he is on his way to love. Sometimes a man will make 2 out of 3 promises and two-third commitment. If you get continuity and longevity, he's probably having sex with other people. If you get sexual exclusivity and continuity but don't get longevity, you're looking at a short romance. He may not be ready for marriage. If a man is not intellectually ready to take on the responsibility of a woman and possibly children, he will say, sorry, I'm not ready to make that kind of commitment. I just want to have some fun. If he says this, he is telling you candidly that he just wants sex, that he hasn't fallen out of his bachelor attitude. And if he tells you this, believe me, he means it. Don't think you can seduce a masculine man. You can't. He's too smart for that. But usually, instead of believing him, the women translate his words into, once he sees how wonderful I am, he'll fall in love with me and he'll marry me. More often than not, it doesn't happen. When Beverly, a fledgling movie producer, met Bruce, an aspiring film director, at a party dinner one Friday night, they talked about what they wanted in life. Beverly was candid about the fact that she was looking for a man to marry, and Bruce was just as candid when he told her that he was just out of a divorce and probably would not be ready to marry for a long time. He said he was just interested in playing the field. Although Beverly heard the words, she was so attracted to Bruce that she invited him back to her apartment. She didn't plan to have sex with him because she knew it was too soon, but after a few passionate kisses, she got swept away, and Bruce spent not only the night but the entire weekend with her. By Sunday morning, they were reading the newspapers in bed. Beverly began picturing the two of them married and living a perfect life. She did this right up to the moment on Sunday afternoon when Bruce gave her his card and left to go to the airport and pick up another woman whom he admitted to Beverly had been sleeping with for nearly 6 months and who had been away for the weekend. Friendship is the root, sex is the bloom. Theoretically, I believe that a couple should wait until they are in the imperfect phase to so they can see one another as whole people, imperfections and all, before they consummate the relationship. Compatibility, along with natural chemistry and good communication skills, is the friendship quotient in a relationship. When a woman feels her man is a dear friend before making love, she is safer in her choice. It is not enough for a man and woman to have good sex together. They must also feel safe as friends together. Talking things out before sex allows both people to be grounded in human values. I advise women to talk about all the issues that are significant interest to them and to their man. If you have strong feelings about politics, religion, ethics, hobbies, cultural events, sports, size of family, career goals, physical defects that might impact on the relationship, past marriages, and why they failed, you should talk about them before sex. However, I warn you, don't discuss old boyfriends or past sexual experiences. A man likes to idolize his woman, and it is not in your best interest to appear shopworn. A man is not trying to hurt you by getting you to have sex with him. A polyamorous married man may take good care of both his mistress and his wife, but it is usually his wife to whom he is committed. She is the one who is in love with, physically, mentally, and emotionally. His mistress is the lust mate. Men marry from their brains to their bodies, and women from their bodies to their brains. Men who want sex only decide not to be responsible for their woman's feelings. They hold her responsible for herself. So if she gives sex without commitment, it is her loss and his gain. Masculine men believe that if a woman is man enough to have casual sex, he has no responsibility to deal with birth control or the possibility of disease. Every man for himself, even if one of them is a woman. A woman who is attracted to a man is much better off if she waits for sex until she hears a good deal for her life. Remember, talk before touching. Usually, good communication and open sharing on significant issues will build a foundation based on reality. Ask yourself these questions. Do I like this person as a human being? Could he and I be real friends, or is he primarily a sex object for me? I like to tell women to seek out the puzzle and the gem within the man. The puzzle is, what makes this person tick? Do I like it? The gem is, what is this person's gift? Humor, honesty, intelligence. The best way to avoid a painful surprise is not to act sexually on your imagination and your projection of his perfection. Find out who he really is. Pathological liars can fabricate perfect stories that will seduce some of you into a bad relationship. If you are insecure about believing him for whatever reason, take him to a third party for a talk about goals and objective before sex. This person could be a friend, a member of your family whose judgment you trust, or a respected religious leader. If you have enough money to spend an hour or two with a professional counselor or therapist, do it. You are worthy of protection from the danger and agony of bad sexual experience. Ultimately, however, life is a series of risks. You do your footwork, make your decision, and then see the results. The rats, the con men are out there. If you get into a bad deal, get help as soon as you can in order not to become sored on love and life. Oxytocin, the love hormone. Why do feminine energy women have to get a commitment before they have sex with a man? Because feminine women bond through sex, but masculine men do not. Most liberated, sexually active women, like Leslie, who slept with Mark on the first date they met, believe they can maintain self-centered control over their emotions after sex. What they don't realize is that casual, non-contracted sex is a normal woman trigger, a bonding that verge on physical addiction. This is due to sexually stimulated hormone called oxytocin, which is predominant in females and which triggers orgasm. Soon the sound of his voice, the look on his face, the touch of his hands, and the smell of his cologne become intensely associated with the addictive pleasure that oxytocin brings and keeps her bonded to him even after they separate. You know the story. On this first date, he was passable. On the second, he was okay. Then you had great sex, and now you can't stand the thought of him ever leaving your side. Your body tells you're in love. And even though your brain is saying he's all wrong for you, what's going on? It's not love, it's oxytocin. Even worse, according to Mary Carmichael at Stanford University, is that women who are sexually aroused by the taste, touch, smell, and sight of a man can love that man addictively while the man remains physically non committed. Chemistry told Leslie she was with the right man and that she should act on this. Compatibility was something she believed she could manipulate by being whatever Mark wanted her to be. She twisted herself into someone who put his needs, wants, and feelings ahead of hers, thinking that when she really needed his support, he would be a loving reciprocator. But Mark was still entrenched with his childhood view of women who, like his mother, give with little need to receive. As for communication, Leslie began to body touching and left talking for later. But then when later came, it was too late to say we are really not compatible. We don't fit together after all, because she was strongly bonded to Mark and she suffered addictive symptoms when he began to pull away. She found herself begging him and chasing him. Mark, on the other hand, could walk away and be with another woman with small effort. It took over a year for Leslie's time in total separation from Mark's body for her oxytocin rush to subside and for the bonding to melt. It can take up to 2 years to break this kind of addiction. So I strongly suggest that for physical, mental, and emotional well-being, you be very careful who you let into your body and under what conditions. If you haven't negotiated a commitment before you make love, you're probably not going to afterward. Left lobe oriented masculine men do not bond through sex. They bond through the commitments they make and keep. When I talk about commitment, what I'm really talking about is choice. And that choice might be a one night stand, a weekend affair, a summer love, or even a relationship with a married man. But at least you know where you stand before the risk of becoming bonded. Requiring a man to commit to you before having sex with him does not mean you are bound to him for life, nor he to you. Instead, you both are entering into an honest and mutual good faith contract in which either of you may decide you're not destined to be life mates, in which case, no hard feelings, only natural human sadness that a dream has died. Life is often painful, but it need not be hurtful. We determine our reactions to pain. Healthy men will handle women's life's broken dreams without hurting themselves or others. Time heals all wounds when you maintain rational and balanced. Why masculine men do not bond the way that feminine women do. Why don't masculine men get hooked on sex and bond the way women do? Because bonding is an experience that is created by the receiving of physical pleasure, and although oxytocin works the same way in men as in women, women seem to be more susceptible to its emotional effects. It has been found that during sex, women produce higher levels of oxytocin than men do, and that it takes more oxytocin for women to achieve orgasm than it takes men, which also impacts on the addiction. Another reason that an assertive, dynamic men don't bond to the physical is because they override their feminine aspects in their feelings with logical testosterone based action oriented behavior. They are after good sex at the cheapest price. Being in control of the deal and competitive with their peers for their prize is the fun of good masculine men. By the way, there are men who do bond through sex. They are predominantly feminine men and more right lobe, feeling oriented older men whose testosterone is being diminished, left handed men who have more access to their feelings neurologically, and men who have been raised predominantly by women and who have learned about feeling centered living from them. How men fall in love and how women share love. Only a masculine man falls in love, a feminine woman doesn't. She must already be in love with herself. If a woman has been well loved by her father, she will be in love with herself. Then, when a man proposes to her, she will be able to consider how and what he can add to her life. If she can do better by herself, she will say no thank you. But if he can add to her life, she simply shares the love she has for herself with him, and he will make her life better for the sharing. A man cannot fall in love with a woman who is not already in love with herself. A woman who loves a man better than herself risks an addictive obsession in which she loses herself completely in service of his narcissistic ego. This is classically speaking the woman who will do anything for a man. Sally worshipped Larry. She loved doing things for him, cleaning his apartment, running errands, and she never complained about his erratic way of making and breaking social commitments. The trouble was, Sally got nothing back. So many women I see want to marry, but act as though they only want to be instantly gratified. Men are confused by the crossed message. Does she want me only to make her body happy, or does she want me to get to know her first in order to decide if I can marry her? A man projects a virtuous image on the woman he wants to marry. When a woman falls from grace and gives a man casual sex, that men can no longer marry her. If he can get it cheap, other men will too, is the way men think. In the old days, our churches, our parents, and the rest of society ordered women to be virtuous. But when women got the pill, we rebelled. Our rebelliousness was appropriate, but not our loss of virtue, which turns men away from marriage. Men want to be married to a woman they can predict will not have sex with other men. The reason men fall in love with the ideal part of women is because they have a natural craving to raise their own spiritual standard. When a man falls in love, he is wishing and striving to be a better man. You hear the phrase, a man is a man until he meets a lady, then he becomes a gentleman. The lady sets a standard that requires but does not demand him to become a gentleman and to cherish her. A boy's rite of passage into manhood is when he stops seeing women, children, and animals as sources of personal gratification and instead sees them as recipients of his manful loving boundary. So if you still think you can get a man to fall in love with you by giving him casual sex or buying him presents or doing his laundry, think twice. All you'll get is irresponsible playmate, and he will meet the lady he falls in love with. And she is the one who will say, no way, Jose, commitment first before sex. It is a woman's responsibility to raise a man's level of consciousness from the concrete level of money and sex, where he's comfortable, to the spiritual level of love and relationships, where she's comfortable. If a woman does this correctly, men will usually calmly because they are very logical thinkers. Whether they admit it or not, men want women to set the spiritual standard in the relationship. They already know how to get laid, and they know that a relationship is only partly about sex. A relationship is about getting bonded, falling in love, and becoming a united team. Men who want to marry will wait for committed sex. A man cannot fall in love with a woman because she is sexy, rich, and good executive and good housekeeper. He can only fall in love with her level of virtue, that part of her that can say no to casual sex, no to loans, and no to moving in without engagement. Even when a woman is ready to negotiate a commitment, she often finds that she is ready before her man is. A good man is hard to capture, and women have to be patient. The only way they can do that is to be anchored in their own self love. Men are a lot slower than we are. By the end of the first date, we're already designing the gown and they're trying to get our name right. We can go from A to Z while men still think from A to B. When a masculine man does surrender and marries, he puts up his money and status and takes on the responsibility not only of his woman, but as everybody she loves. Remember, a good beginning almost always guarantees a good ending. How to require a commitment, not to demand one. A feminine woman must require, not demand, a commitment from a masculine man because a demand is masculine. A masculine man do not respond in a positive way to a demand. But how do you require a commitment? By waiting until a man asks you for sex, then stating your negative feelings about casual sex. Say something like, thank you for the compliment, I like being seen by you as sexually desirable. However, I know that I will pleasurably bond to you because I am chemically attracted to you, and I don't know if it's safe yet. Now that you have thanked him and told him you're interested and said no until talking occurs. He said, "What would make you feel safe?" You say, "I would like to know about your goals for us, about our love interests you may have, about your ability to see me regularly. I am willing to begin a committed, long term relationship that hopefully could be headed for marriage. Are you?" Now you have shown him that you are a vulnerable, sensitive woman who loves herself better than she loves him, and he knows you will not have casual sex, but will with discussion of longevity, continuity, and exclusivity factors, and with an understanding reached, might make love to him. Then he might say to himself, "This woman costs too much for me," and go off to the next girl who is willing to give him a better deal. Or he may say, "Why didn't she go for it? I'm a good deal." If he says that, he'll drop his anchor just a bit and take you out again. You still won't sleep with him, but now he's starting to get to know you and like you. If he drops his anchor a bit more and more, this man is falling in love. For a man, falling in love is really dangerous. When he does this, he puts his mind, body, heart, and soul and money into a commitment. A man doesn't usually risk falling in love more than once in his life because when he falls totally in love, he risks his life and his career. And if his relationship fails, he could lose confidence in himself and in all facets of his life, including business. He will then usually distrust women to such a degree that he will swear never to fall in love again. This kind of man uses women for gratification. So while it may be in a man's best interest to find a woman who will give him casual sex, it is not in yours unless you're man enough to get laid, which is far different than making love. Making love is based on the feminine principle of a relationship. The relationship is built on friendship and expressed through sex. Getting laid is based on the masculine principle of sharing sexual gratification with a friendly partner. A sensitive woman whose goal is a committed relationship is usually intentively aware of the possible mistake of going all the way with a man whose agenda is unknown to her, and she will be reluctant to have casual sex without knowing why she feels that way. If she overrides her natural apprehension and goes for it, she soon finds herself in the pain of a relationship that is not fulfilling. Instead of having sex, try going dancing, getting a massage, and starting an exercise program. Judy, an interior designer, came to one of my seminars and admitted that she had a story of casual sexual relationships and lots of pain, but she was determined to stop. When she met Todd, a handsome and successful doctor, on a blind date her friends had arranged, there were lots of chemistry between them. As the evening progressed, they also found out how much they had in common. They were of the same religion, had a similar socioeconomic background, liked the same movies and books, and laughed at the same jokes. The only thing they didn't share, Judy found out at the end of the evening, was their view on monogamy. Todd admitted honestly that although he wanted to sleep with her, he had no intention of settling down with her for any other woman for the next few years anyway. Judy chose to decline Todd's valid invitation to bed. Instead, she became friends with him and kept herself clean in mind and body, clear to meet a man who did want a commitment, which eventually she did. When saying no is painful. When Kathy, a creative and talented magazine writer, was introduced by a friend to Neil, an attractive surgeon, there was an immediate chemical spark, and to Kathy's delight, Neil soon shared the fact that he was looking for a committed relationship with the right person. However, Neil pressured Kathy for sex after their second date, and even though her attraction to him made her feel like melting into his arms, she told him how she felt about casual sex and what it would take for her to make love. Neil candidly told Kathy that it was unthinkable for him to commit to her without knowing how compatible they are sexually, and said that for him to the spontaneity of good sex was with the right woman brought on the commitment that although he liked her very much, he found her requirements too calculating for his taste. The next day, Kathy was full of self doubt, afraid that Neil would not call her again. Even though she knew she would firmly hold to her requirements, she told me how painful it was to say no. I helped her to realize that the loss of a man who leaves when you say no to casual sex or to other requests from you to perform can be painful but not hurtful. What is hurtful is for a woman to give herself totally and find out that it is still not enough. Relationships cost. Casual dates and sex cost less pragmatically, but do not achieve the committed intimacy we may want in our lives. They can be costly emotionally to the woman who becomes bonded. It is not the orgasm itself, but the intent, commitment behind the orgasm that counts. Making love is satisfying in a totally encompassing way when two people decide to commit because they add to their already existing human friendships the aspect of sexual fulfillment. But when the intent is only to fulfill or gratify physical needs as a priority before a commitment, a tone is set that is not romantic. The truth is that romance is anticipation. Romance is between the ears, not between the legs. Romance is courtship, not dating. Romance is lovemaking, not having sex. Romance is a commitment, an act of will between two people. It is easy to find a sex partner, but it is my intent to assist you in making love with someone who wants to make love to you and is willing to commit to the process before being gratified. Making love requires an ability and willingness to be intimate. In order to build intimacy, you must verbally communicate your wants and feelings. You must learn to communicate and negotiate, or your will to set in motion the manipulations and games that will ultimately destroy what you have together. I believe that by asking Kathy, who wants to be the female energy in a relationship, to stop being generous, protective, and cherishing of a man, even if it means losing him, I am offering her a second chance. When she said no to casual sex with Neil, who is masculine man, he then had two choices. He could either sell out to have casual sex with a masculine man, or he could choose to investigate another path with Kathy, the way to intimacy and commitment. If Neil chose to sell out, Kathy would be none the worse. How men test women. Like Neil, very many masculine men test the women they are attracted to by seeing if they will mother them physically. What they really need is to meet a woman who will not love them like a giving mother, but who will like them as a self centered receiving female until both parties want sex as a means of bonding and lovemaking and will forsake all other relationships. A man is a man. He is polygamous animal one minute and a human being the next. He must be required to blend with both these aspects by a woman who is so confident and in sync with herself that she will refuse him sex until she can be certain of his commitment. For it is that sense of security and safety that allows her to surrender to the man who shows her he wants her so much that he is willing to voluntarily give up his drive to have sexual relations with many women. Of course, a man will attempt to cajole, and undermine you when you say no to casual sex. His head tells him that he should not be doing this, but his nature challenges him to push past your resistance and get his needs met. Lust attracts us to someone we may like and ultimately love, but when a man settles for lust alone, he eliminates liking and love. He knows deep inside that a woman can get into bed with only a little push, cannot be trusted as a virtuous ideal woman to marry and grow old with. He knows that her sense of self worth is so shaky that she can be easily manipulated and used, which in turn causes him to feel disgust or guilt. Or he knows she is attempting to control him through seductive giving. Neither way works. A woman who has given sex only to find out it has made little difference in a man's way of relating to her, often feels used and abused, and suffers the anger of man hating. The way to avoid feeling confused and damaged is to say no to casual sex unless that is all you want. When you've said no to casual sex and he's not calling back. If you said no to casual sex to a man you like and you choose to be the feminine energy, you must bite the bullet and wait 8 weeks for him to call you back. Remember, a normal, right handed focused, logical man needs 4 to 8 weeks to evaluate the loss of you. This is a decision of emotional significance involving both left logic and, in this case, do I want her enough to call her again? And right lobed feelings. I miss her. She's really nice and sexy lady. Should I call her again? If he calls in 2 or 4 weeks, it means he was ready for commitment and needed only to evaluate things a little while. Men, many men can manage 4 weeks apart from a woman they care about quite easily. If he starts after 6 weeks, which is a crucial time, he has made a rash rational male decision. As I said before, 8 weeks is critical. If he hasn't called within that time frame, stop waiting and go on to other men and other experiences. So, what happened to Neil and Kathy? As time passes, a man like Neil, who is not accustomed to being turned down by a woman who is obviously sexually attracted to him, must handle certain questions. Why was Kathy different from the others? Because she's virtuous, not needy. Could I have done something better to conquer her? Maybe perhaps I'll try again. What should I make of my failure to succeed? Discount her, or she is nothing to me, others are easier and better, or become irritated thinking about her and want resolution, or call her back in 6 to 8 weeks to try again. Or I realize that Kathy is a good woman and that I will have to surrender and agree to a commitment to get her for myself. If Neil called and asked to see her, he would begin he would be signaling that her courtship was on the dating over. In any case, Neil would almost surely remember Kathy as the one woman who loved herself enough to qualify the buyer, and at some deep level he will appreciate her virtue. I have found that men do feel guilty after casual sex relationships, but for them it is a little like eating potato chips. You can't stop with one. Sexual addiction is a problem for men in a world of generous women who manipulate with sex and money to buy a man's love lust. The shark cage. As it turns out, while Kathy was waiting out her 8 weeks, she learned that Neil was having sex with two other women. She realized that she had said yes to him. She would have been just another woman in his harem. But Kathy was confused. What kind of man was Neil anyway? She had seemed so nice and sincere. Now she wondered if he intended to call her back, should she go out with him? I told Kathy that Neil was just a normal male who withheld data about his private life because he had no obligation to divulge information that would all but eliminate his success with her. The truth was that Neil was tired of some of the other women in his harem and wanted a new one. He talked of wanting an intimate, permanent relationship, but he went about getting in a non intimate way. That is, genitals first, heart second. Men play on women's fantasies that he loves the same as she loves. He does not. Many women act as though it were a man's responsibility to help a woman be a woman, but a man's nature dictates that he gets his needs met. If a woman wants to give in to him, why shouldn't he accept? If we ask beforehand, we may find out about his other woman and take care of ourselves. If we don't ask beforehand, he will not offer information. Why should he? I often say that masculine men are like sharks, and we must remember that sharks never sleep. They are always moving looking for their next prey. Little girls must be taught not to go into the water and play with them. Even good divers do not go down unprotected. They use shark cages. You need a shark cage too. You can't trap a shark unless he is sedated. He smells the cage and runs away. At least with my system, we show the cage to the shark up front and invite him in. By the way, Kathy and Neil's story hasn't ended. 6 weeks after he walked out of her apartment, Neil did call her and ask for a date, thereby beginning their courtship period, which consisted of their getting to know each other without sex until he felt safe enough with Kathy to give up his harem and commitment. The difference between courting and dating. For a man, there is a difference between courting and dating. When he is courting, he has mindset to mate, to be committed into a long-term monogamous relationship that may or not include marriage. In his mind, courting means he has spotted a woman whom he intuitively knows could be his lover, his wife, and the mother of his children. He is going to win her over with his magnificence like any proud peacock. He is ready to commit before he meets her. When he sees her, he is first drawn to her outward beauty, which looks right to him. He then begins to pursue her with dates, phone calls, and small gestures of affection like flowers, cards, and gifts. Often he does not try to get her into bed too quickly, out of deference to her supposed higher morality. He is patient and takes the time to do it right. A woman makes a big mistake if, upon dating a man who is slow to make a sexual advance, she asks him if he is gay or becomes the sexual aggressor. Either of these approaches can lead to sex based on her request, which often returns to a man off for the long term, or can result into a termination of his romantic idealized courtship. Aggressive sexual behavior on the part of a woman may produce a purely sexual relationship or may even end the relationship. This is because as soon as sex begins, a form of possessiveness begins based on your mutual minimal knowledge of the other person's true personality. I know it is hard to wait, especially when the physical attraction is strong and you've played everything up to this point by my rules, but you must wait. Anne, a blonde conservative executive secretary, was looking for a committed relationship but was having no luck until she came to my seminars, learning how to flirt and to package a market her femininity and duty dated as per my suggestions. Then she met Greg, a quiet, gentle owner of a bookstore. The first 2 months of their perfect phase went well, but as soon as Anne became bored with Greg's slow ways, she took months to sexually approach her. Still at my urging, Anne bided her time and did not ask for more love, affection, or sex. Eventually, they did go to bed together, but did not have intercourse because Greg would not give the entrance free longevity, continuity, and exclusivity. For months, Anne and Greg slept together without sex a few times a week. He asked her to meet his family, who lived out of state, and she passed muster with his powerful mom and his gentle dad and brother. Soon after this trip, Greg proposed marriage and they had sex. Eventually, Anne's patience paid off, but she and Greg are happily married and the parents of a baby girl. Greg wanted to mate and took his time finding the right person. But while there are many more men like him out there whose mindset is to court and not date, the problem for most women lies in the fact that from the outside, both of the courting man and the dating man act in the same way. He says what he needs to be said to convince you that he is going where you are going, usually towards commitment and marriage. If a man is lying, you will know it in a matter of days because he will feel guilty using you and he will make his real intentions clear. So you will not have lost too much time or energy or gotten too bonded sexually. Psychopaths and criminals can use and abuse for a longer period than normal men, but eventually your intuition will flag you and you get out probably with a wounded ego and much less money if you're already having casual sex. If you have already let him in and now you're reading this book and realizing that you made a mistake, what do you do? First, cross those pretty legs of yours and tell him that you are going to stop having sex with him until he's agreed to a commitment. Say, I made a mistake. I let our relationship down by giving you a casual sex. I'm not going to do that anymore. I understand you may leave, but from now on, I need longevity, continuity, and exclusivity from you, or that's it. You are saying these words because you mean them and because you want a man who wants the same things that you do. Anything less is no longer acceptable. During a workshop in Los Angeles, Jennifer, an attorney, came down to the front of the room and revealed that she was in a relationship with Michael, a successful businessman, and that everything was great except for one thing. Her man would not commit to a permanent arrangement towards marriage and children. What to do? I told her flatly, it's simple, pull the plug, no more sex. You'll find out soon enough what his intentions are. Jennifer followed my advice and told Michael that she had made a mistake and would no longer be having sex with him without a commitment. With my system, men usually leave quickly or they stay around for a long time. And my success rate of couples who stay together is very high, partly because they both have a clear understanding of what is expected of them before they get bonded. Luckily, Jennifer found out that her man did love her and was ready for a commitment. About a month later, she returned to the workshop with Michael, her engagement ring, and a wedding date. However, not every woman who says no gets as quick or as satisfying a response as Jennifer did. Liza, a television executive who came to one of my seminars, confided, my boyfriend Edward and I are seeing each other steadily for 6 months. I have been fighting a lot lately over commitment. I know that if I don't have sex with him, he'll want to date other women. He says we can be friends and maybe it will work out later. What should I do? I told Lisa that this friendship her boyfriend wants is is contact without romance, and that she must say no because seeing him, even on a friendly basis, keeps the connection going. For her part, seeing him, even hearing his voice, an answering machine, keeps her bonded. On his part, he gets to use her and other women and keep her available should he want her. I told her that it would be too painful to date him while he is having sex with others, and that she shouldn't do it. Often, after you tell a man your requirements, he will hear what you say and walk out the door, and the pain will be intense. You may be unable to eat, or you will overweight. You will cry, talk, and scream, but there is nothing for you to do except wait 8 weeks. Marilyn, a nursery school teacher, had been dating Leon, her architect boyfriend, for 6 years. Although they lived in separate apartments, they hardly spent a night without each other. Marilyn was ready to get married, but Leon wanted to keep the status quo. One day Marilyn decided that enough was enough. Either we get married, she thought, or we're done. She told Leon that evening and he did as she expected. He said, "You're right, Marilyn. I'm not ready to get married yet, and I don't want to keep you from your goal." The parting was tearful and tender, and both believed their long relationship was over. Marilyn knew that she was doing what she had to do for herself, although the pain was terrible. As the weeks passed, although it was not easy, Marilyn went about her life trying to make new connections and fill the space her relationship left. She thought about Leon a lot and began dating other men. Then, to her surprise, exactly 8 weeks after the breakup, he called. "I made a mistake," he said. "I can't replace you, and I don't want to live without you. Will you marry me?" Marilyn was stunned. She never expected that call, but she was thrilled to get it. She accepted Leon's proposal. They have been happily married now for 10 years and are the proud parents of 2 children. Marilyn's story is not unusual. Many masculine, bullheaded men must feel the pain of loss before they realize that they wanted to be married. 8 weeks again. I must emphasize that this is a critical time when one incorrect action on your part can extend your painful bond to the wrong man. It is so imperative that you understand what is happening during this process. As I have said, it takes approximately 8 weeks for a man to process a decision. For 4 weeks, he can usually function, at least superficially, dating, working, and living. At first, his left lobe logic says, "Who needs her? I'll decide how things go between us. No woman controls me." If he is in love with you and not just using you for sex, but didn't know he was in love, somewhere around 6 to 8 weeks, he will miss you so badly he may call and ask to be friends. Don't do it. This rekindles your oxytocin bond. Don't listen to his voice on the telephone message recorder or yours. Change the voice on your recording. Have someone else do your message so he can't get a voice fix of you and be able to stay away longer. Don't taste, touch, smell, or see or hear him. You will lose that tension building separation anxiety. Let the rubber band stretch and stretch. Don't call him for any reason. If you are as patient as Job, you can control your impulsive need to reconnect before 8 weeks. If you call him, you lose and he wins. Sex is all you get, and you learn to hate each other. But if you don't call, as his right lobe feels the pain, he will realize why it hurts. He misses you. No one else can replace you. He must have another chance to be with you, which will lead him to call you and admit that he is in love with you and wants a commitment. However, if he does not call in 8 weeks, it's over. Start Judy dating, dress up, get out, and read self help books. Get on with your life as a single woman. If you have had a long term relationship, it might take as long as 2 years to get over him. Don't sit around. A new love will take you away from him. Don't give up. Don't give up on relationships, even if you have an unsuccessful or painful experience. Read this book carefully and learn how to have a successful committed relationship. Then do it, step by step. Giving up on love is what men have done, so they settle for casual sex. Instead, evaluate your objectives. Maintain your integrity, your physical well being, and your emotional balance. Remember, whenever you are tempted to give a man sex before he gives you a commitment, I promise never to love a man more than I love myself, for my spiritual sake as well as his. Why should he commit? These days, women claim that men are non committal. a claim that women are and allow men to follow suit. Why should a masculine man restrict his bachelor nature to be responsible for an independent woman and her kids? He would rather invest the money in his life, fun, and prosperity as long as he can get sex with minimal cost. Self gratifying, self centered men are dating self satisfied, selfless women who like playing and dating as much as they do. Many men feel castrated and no longer act like men, fighting and competing for the best sex partner. They have few challenges other than watching sports events and clawing their way up the corporate ladder, which is currently unfiltrated by many women more male than they are. They have been put in suits with leftover noses, ties, stuck in cars for hours each day, and struggle to an office often dominated by a woman so hard and tough she would scare the night stalker. Then after work the poor guy is asked to make love to the fair maiden and marry her so he can work for her and the kids when she won't even respect him enough to let him lead because she has to be liberated from the domination of men. This is not a pretty picture, and it is one that has turned many men towards the uncommitted life or workaholism. Balance must come back to a fair trade of respecting for cherishing by respectful men and women who wish to be cherished. Let's teach women how to be cherished by first teaching them to cherish themselves. In the past, men felt a moral obligation to marry. These days, men respect a woman's ability to take care of herself and be independent. They see women as equal to casual sex the way they are, therefore, they feel no need to protect us even from themselves. Only when men get hungry for the best woman, they will make a deal and settle down. It is the woman's job to set the parameters of the deal. If we say yes to casual sex, we have assumed responsibility for the results. It is our ability to say no without commitment that is the essence of this book.